Gravity is compressed magnetic energy. That's the end of the video. We don't need anything else. So but let me get into some of the mechanics of that. Imagine, for example, any system, like if this is the Earth and this is the atmosphere, the ionosphere, and this is an upper rim, and then inside the Earth is an inner rim. So we can call this the upper rim and lower rim, if you can see that, and I'll just explain it as well. So, if you think in terms of like the Earth and the solar system and our galaxy and other galaxies, when you have that energy field around a given area, such as the Earth, or like the solar system has like the heliosphere, the heliosheath, and then the galaxy as well. Anytime there's that type of energy field, there is a gravity circuit that's working. So that circuit will feed energy, and there'll be a differential between an outer rim and an inner rim of energy. Energy will flow from that outer rim, that outer field, to an inner field. In the solar system's case, it would be from the edge of the solar system flowing inward to the sun. So that would be a pulsed, at a very, very specific pulse rates of magnetic energy that are flowing at a differential. So they're flowing on a tract, and they're getting from the outer part of the solar system to inside the sun, and then being distributed out from there. This is obvious at this point if you've been watching these videos, but wherever a field is manifesting, and that's essentially everywhere, there's an interdimensional energy exchange taking place. Okay, so, and you could say that's everything. Everything has some sort of energy field around it. And that is true to some degree, yes. And so there's an interdimensional exchange of energy wherever there's an energy field. That's a good indicator of that. Now, there may be areas of less dense ether, like that what we call space. And I have to use the word space because it's just easier to talk that way. But there will be areas out there where the energy is latent, like it's latent, it's neutral, and there's not necessarily a high exchange happening, an interdimensional exchange happening. But when you get to like the concentrated energy fields like of the solar system or our ionosphere, there's a huge amount of energy exchange happening, and a circuit, a gravity circuit. So there's energy coming from the outer rim to the lower rim, and it's being pushed and pulled. There's essentially two forces happening. If either one of those forces or either one of those fields is interrupted, the circuit is broken and it will stop impacting that particular object. So that's why, like, for example, around the Earth, around 21,000 magnetic pulses per second, and please don't confuse that with like electromagnetic pulses or kilohertz or something. But think about 21,000 neutral magnetic pulses per second alleviates gravity. So what it does is it interrupts that circuit, and then anything around that field of 21,000 magnetic pulses per second no longer has gravity impacting it. I've said this before, and we have to say this again for the record. Gravity is not a function of mass. Okay? So it's important for us to dispel some of the myths that are being propagated upon the human race and this whole brainwashing thing. And maybe I should touch on in a few minutes some of the consequences of that and the path that humanity has been led down. Gravity is compressed magnetism. there is no mass really to anything. Gravity is not a function of mass. Planetary bodies only have mass when they are in a magnetic field, when they are in magnetic energy, when there is energy flowing through them, that gives them the equivalent of mass. But it's only subject to certain parameters of that energy flowing. So it is possible to generate a field that counteracts any gravity field. And then whatever that object is, inside of that energy, that counteracting field will become weightless. Or it could become heavier, or even lighter, or even repelling gravity. So gravity is it's a pulsed magnetic energy, and it varies with each planet. It varies with each solar system. It varies with each galaxy. They all have their own signatures that are specific to them in that gravity pulse system. Now that's one type of gravity. So when we've got the circuit and we've got energy feeding in and then going back into like the source path of energy. Another type of relationship is if you have, let's say, like a moon around a planet. So there's an interconnecting energy vortex between like a body of a moon and a main planet, and that vortex will go back and forth. It'll be like a counter-rotating, and it'll be bidirectional. So that vortex of energy that, like, for example, holds the moon in place and locks it to the earth highly depends on conditions on our planet being conducive to that hold. You could liken it to the strength of like 100-mile wide steel cable. So that's quite strong. But here's the issue. When certain things in our atmosphere or our planet or our water in particular changes, that system is impacted. And so it's like this whole system is very carefully balanced, and it's very sensitive. It's very strong, but it's also sensitive. So when you change the viscosity of water, for example, with oil, like having oil spills, that change in water viscosity makes it more difficult for the vortex to grip. And so it's very important to let the earth stay in its natural state and not impact it with things like oil spills. Because then what will happen is there'll be a counter reaction force to that, and the system will be attempting to regain balance, and then that's when you can have all kinds of catastrophic things happen. So we've got a couple different types of expressions of magnetic energy and gravity. We've got interlocking vortices that will keep planetary bodies in position around other planetary bodies. And then we've got overall other fields that will be like a magnetic circuit. Those things will not influence each other as long as those pulse rates remain different. And so when you think in terms of traveling through gravity fields, when you have a vehicle that is counteracting those gravitational pulses, it will freely move with no trouble at all through what we call gravity. So the need for rockets, for example, would no longer be needed. And then if you start to extrapolate from that, well, it's not very long until you say, well, the need for oil becomes obsolete. When you can power vehicles through etheric energy, and then you can also alleviate gravity, it kind of the whole economic system starts to completely unravel. And let's talk more in detail about that in another video. Far as applications for gravity are concerned, you can create, we people can create, and this will happen all over the place, hopefully in the near future, you can create artificial gravity fields with magnetic pulsing technology, and that allows a lot of things to happen. First of all, if you're on a ship of some sort, it's a great inertia dampener. Also, if you're in industry and you're manufacturing things, being able to control gravity and being able to create a weightless environment wherever you want, or even a heavier environment, has tremendous advantages for industry. So, gravity's compressed magnetism. Mass does not exist. Gravity is not a byproduct of mass. Now inside of there are bands inside of a gravity field. So, like for example, in our solar system and in our galaxy, the expression of that circuit through magnetic pulsing creates certain bands, and those bands of energy have varying degrees of strength and of pulsing. If you start to consider that gravity is an expression of compressed magnetic energy, and that each planetary object moves according to the field around it and its relationship to the overall gravity circuit around it, it's very easy to explain the movement of bodies not only in our solar system and in our galaxy, but throughout the universe. So, for some reason, physics got off on this whole track of not being able to figure out why things were moving the way they were moving, or the speed they were moving. And so this whole invention of dark matter and dark energy to try to explain the discrepancies that they were getting in observation compared to math. Again, math does not necessarily equal reality, and we've got to just observe nature, but then also embrace new technology and new ideas, new paradigms that can actually explain how things work. In the magnetic energy model, all the movements that we see throughout our galaxy and beyond can be explained perfectly in that context. There is no need to create this whole idea of dark energy and dark matter. When you start saying, wow, things don't necessarily have the mass we thought they did, and there is no mass to anything. It's more about the energy vortex moving through an object and how that relationship is to the surrounding energy pulsing around it. Speed can vary tremendously in that paradigm of thinking. So I absolutely don't want to promote conspiracy thinking too much, even though there's probably a lot of truth to conspiracy thinking. But what are the consequences of keeping this information hidden from the general public? Other than protecting the oil company interests, and other than protecting the control and keeping humanity economically enslaved, it also really creates this idea that it's very difficult to leave our planet and to leave our solar system and to explore the galaxy or the universe. It's very it gives people this idea that, wow, gravity is such a hard force to reckon with, when in fact it's not at all. As soon as you hit the right pulse rates, the magnetic pulse rates, there's no resistance. You could have ships that are miles wide. It also lends credence to the UFO phenomenon and what people observe in UFOs and what people record, and how they zip in and out of our atmosphere with the greatest of ease, with no exhaust, with probably magnetic energy powering their vehicles. So that control, that attempt at controlling our thinking or our beliefs is hopefully on the brink of coming to an end. I just want to end this with a quick: technology is not the only way to alleviate gravity. And when people start working with this etheric energy and with magnetic fields more, and even if they don't, even if they just work with natural processes that don't involve units, but if they work with certain crystals or elements, they can raise their physiological vibration to a point where they can levitate. They can levitate other objects, because gravity is simply compressed magnetic energy. So there are natural processes that can also alleviate gravity. So just think about that, ponder on that, and think about the stories throughout history of levitation and people levitating things and people. Those stories become very real very quickly because we have the ability to modulate our energy field around us. And if someone's trained in that art and they can tune in to the energy around them, they can alleviate the gravity circuit and become weightless. So I'll just leave you with that, and we'll see y'all next time.